All right, now broadcasting. All right, I see Shannon, I see Jodi. Can you guys hear my voice?
Yes, hi, Bryon.
Hi, Shannon, how are you? Hi, Jodi, can you hear me and can I hear you?
I sure can. Can you hear me, Bryon?
I can. There is Ms. Melanie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great, and I see Ken is jumping on now. So I think we have ourselves a quorum. All right.
All right.
So now the quorum. Hey, okay, modern technology. You gotta love it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So let me just ask the audience. Hello, all. Can you hear our voice? If you can, if you wouldn't mind just typing into the chat box, letting me know that. All right. Thank you all for being so responsive. Wow, that's a lot of yeses. Seems like we've got a good crowd gathered. Hello, all. This is Bryon Ellington, Chief Operating Officer for Century 21, and thank you all for joining the Paycheck Protection Program and CARES Act for Agents panel. We apologize for the delay in getting started. Gotta love modern technology, but I only say that facetiously because without it, this wouldn't be possible, and we're glad that it is. So we have got a great session for you today. For those of you who've been following in the news, you know that Congress, the Senate, has passed a new bill funding even more so the CARES Act, and it's expected to go to the House, I believe, Thursday, and the president has signaled that he would sign it. So we're going to talk about that. I've got an exciting panel. I want to let them introduce themselves. So panelists, if you would, Melanie, why don't we start with you? You want to share about yourself and your great C21 company?
So my name is Melanie Banks. I am just outside of Philadelphia, northeast of that. I own 3 offices with Ken, 2 in Pennsylvania, 1 in New Jersey. We started in 2015 and I have 80 agents now, so super excited. And managing through this PPP program has been super fun.
Awesome. And your partner in crime, Ken?
Yeah, hey guys, Ken Murawski, also with Century 21 Veterans. Just love what we do, and I mean it's certainly been challenging at this point, but you know, I think that's what makes it more fun, I guess.
And rounding out the C21 cast of characters, Jodi Meyers. Jodi, you might have to unmute yourself there.
Hey, Bryon. Hello, everyone. I'm Jodi Meyers. I am the growth consultant for the South region with Century 21 Corporate. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being on. And we have a special guest from NAR, Ms. Shannon McGahn, who is Senior Vice President of Governmental Affairs. Shannon, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do for us?
Sure. Thanks, Bryon. It's great to be with you all today. So like Bryon said, I run the federal government affairs here for the National Association of Realtors. We oversee the Hill lobbying efforts and work very closely with Joe Ventrone and the federal regulatory policy team. I think we have one of them on the call today, Sarah Young. So if there are some specific questions about implementations of program, I get to phone a friend and get Sarah on the line too to help with any of the specific questions. Great to be with you all.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. And Ariel Jordan on the C21 team, who is a master of this, and thank goodness she is. Ariel, Sarah Young is with us and may need to chime in with some detailed information. So if we can cue her up, that'd be awesome. For those of you playing along at home, please feel free to type in your questions as we go. I'm going to ask our panelists here the questions I can think to ask, but I'd love any detailed questions that you might have. And if we can't answer, there she is. Hi, Sarah Young. Nice to see you. Thanks for being on. For any questions that we can't answer, we'll try to direct you as to where you can go to get those answered. First off, just let me say this. When we talk about the Paycheck Protection Program and the CARES Act, we as independent contractors are covered in this. And it is a great opportunity. I was just on a top 221 agent mastermind. These are the top folks within Century 21. Several of them have applied for it for their teams and other things. There are multiple pieces of this act that we're going to talk through today that are applicable to you and helping you as a small business owner. And as real estate agents, we all are small business owners. So panel, let's jump in. So first off, let's talk broadly. What are the benefits that are available to agents today as independent contractors through the CARES Act and otherwise?
Okay, I'll jump.
Go. Interrupt the rules, please.
Yeah, right. So we have the PPP program is out there. Unemployment compensation is out there. I think one of the things that we're taking advantage of, or trying to take advantage of, is all of the free information that's out there. But you know, from C21 and from other groups. But as far as financial, PPP, as you know, just got refunded. Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate you beating those guys up down there. So yeah, PPP is probably the biggest one.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hey, I can jump in quickly here. So essentially there are 3 buckets of programs that have been made available to our realtor members, and we fought at the beginning to ensure that any programs that the federal government was contemplating would include independent contractors, self-employed, and commission-based earners. So the first is on the cash side. You're seeing those direct payments that hopefully most, if not all of you, have received so far based on your 2018 or 2019 tax filing. So that's the $1,200 plus. Then you're also seeing the access to unemployment benefits, which of all the programs that are out there, I think that's the one that policymakers were hoping would be a last resort, but is a resort and is something that was unprecedentedly opened up to independent contractors. You're also seeing on the tax side, there are a number of programs that haven't gotten as much attention in that area, but ones that are encouraging small businesses to, if they don't take an SBA loan, to retain employees and to get forgivable or get immediate tax benefits that come from that. And then as Ken mentioned, you're also seeing in the loans and grant sizes, the PPP being the largest of them all. This is the one that the Treasury Department said went through 14 years worth of loans in 14 days that ran out of money last week, I believe Thursday at 10 a.m., but that the Senate just acted yesterday to replenish those funds, and we're waiting for the House to vote on it tomorrow. And then in addition to that, you have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, which is another one that was in high demand. And I use the word demand, not popularity, because work is popular and being able to conduct your business is popular. These are just necessary. These are programs that that nobody wants to have, but we're grateful to have them when needed. So that one is also being included in this replenishment of funds package to ensure that there's more advancement money and that you're also getting the program just up and running again.
Okay.
Just to add a little bit to that, just to back up just a little bit, you know, the PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program loan. And, you know, this all goes back to, you know, this was part of the CARES Act that was passed last month. And as most everybody knows, the first round of funds ran out of money, I believe it was in 14 days. So what we're looking at this go round is they could possibly go even faster. So the biggest thing before we even get into the other questions is just, you know to apply as soon as possible. The last I heard was that there was $310 billion added. You know, I heard from a lot of the agents, you know, that smaller banks weren't participating. They weren't provided the money. So this go around, $60 billion is going to the smaller banks. Those are the banks with about 50 billion in assets or less. And just to kind of give you some perspective, as of April, so this opened up for agents on April 10th, the first go around. And just to give you some perspective, there were 1.7 million applications have been approved for the PPP. And this isn't just real estate, this is all independent contractors. And you know, some of you have asked, well, where are the approvals? What states? Who's getting approved? Just to give you a little bit of idea where the most of the approvals are right now, they're coming from California, Texas, Florida. What I've been reading up on is that the highest approvals right now are in the construction sector. It's about 45 million. And for the real estate sector, right now the approvals are right at about 15 million. So I just wanted to add that just to kind of give some history and depth to all of this.
You know, you bring up a good point. So we mentioned at the top of the call that the Senate has passed this new round of funding, and it's expected to go to the House on Thursday. Everybody thinks that it will get passed. It's got earmarks, and as you mentioned, Jodi, $60 billion of that has been earmarked for banks with, I think it was $50 billion in assets and below. Of that $60 billion, though, $30 billion of it has been earmarked for banks with less than $10 billion in assets. I think I've got those numbers right. You can read about it, obviously, on the news and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. But so that starts to give us an indication about like where we should be applying here. And there's a great deal of confusion out there. So I want to start there because there's agents saying, well, should I even apply? Who should apply for this? And also there's, you know, a good friend of mine, Adam Oberski, was sharing, you know, one of the concerns that his agents had was that there's, I think, something like 300,000 loans out there that have not yet been approved that are standing in line. And there's a big concern that this new round of funding is going to get eaten up with just the outstanding applications. So I want to talk about this round of funding and then also the next round, the likelihood of next round, because we discussed that the other day when we were chatting. But before we do that, first off, as an agent, should I apply for this?
Yes.
Absolutely. No question
All right,
asked.
there you go.
Yeah, there's no getting around the fact that this is going away. As frustrating as it's been, and Melanie and I are 5 or 6 applications into this thing, as frustrating as that has been, there's nothing better than trying to take advantage of this program. I mean, we've looked at it 7 ways from Sunday, and you know, just the EIDL alone is, I want to say free money, but it's free money in your account. And there's a little confusion on that, and Shannon, I'm sure you can clear this up. EIDL advance is one part of it, but EIDL loan is a different part of it. But again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. In the end, PPP is a no-brainer. You have to apply for it.
Great.
As an agent, I mean, as a broker, you're going to apply for your employees and your own salary. As an agent, though, agents tend to forget that they're in business and they're going to apply for themselves. It's going to be based on your Schedule C net number. So what's kind of confusing is that if you made 130,000 and you guys are doing what every other realtor is doing and hiding all of your expenses in there, and your net number is now 40,000 at the end because you do not want to pay a lot of taxes, that is the net number you're using to apply for this loan. But they're saying all the way up to 100,000 on that net. So when you apply for that, you're looking at a loan that's almost $21,000, where 75% of that is forgiven automatically, and the other 25% is still kind of up in the air. So as an agent on applying, the unemployment is kind of crazy out there, and it's really is the last resort because you can't seem to get it anywhere. So applying for this kind of just helps out a little bit with, this is about 8 weeks of salary for a lot of people. So on where to apply as an agent, I can tell you that PayPal is probably one of your easiest to go to. They are approving small loans at a very rapid rate, as opposed to our lovely Wells Fargo, who apparently decided to shuffle the deck and give it to big companies. So PayPal, if you're an agent, I would absolutely be going to PayPal and making my application today. What you need when you make your application is your 1099 and your Schedule C, but it's your Schedule C from 2019. So make sure you have on your computer ready to go your 1099 and also your Schedule C, even if it wasn't filed for 2019. They're saying that's what they're going to need. to kind of approve your information. So those are the two big things you're going to need real quick.
For the brokers on the call. Sorry.
Nope, please go.
Yeah, for the brokers on the call, 940s, 941s, last year's tax returns, those are all the things that you're going to need. Yeah, it's get the documents ready because you're going to need them.
Awesome.
And
So
going back
I've seen
to,
a lot of questions.
Sorry.
Go right ahead, Jodi, please.
I was just going to say, going back to, the banks, because I've been hearing this all week, is, there is a link on the SBA site where you can put in your zip code to see if there are SBA approved banks in your area. And this may be your next question, Bryon, but do you need a business account? I've been hearing that some banks are requiring business accounts, and I've been hearing that some banks aren't requiring a business account. For the broker owners, I've been hearing that is a must. For if you broker owner, must, hands down, business account. That's what I've been hearing for all the brokers. For the agents, I've been hearing that it's mixed. Melanie and Ken, you guys may have more.
If you do PayPal, you don't need a business account. They ask you what your account you want to dump it into.
Yeah, that's probably your best bet right now is PayPal.
So on this topic, like I said, $60 billion specifically earmarked for smaller banks, 30 billion of that specifically earmarked for much smaller banks. That should give you some sort of thought process as to where to apply. What we're hearing, and I can't speak to the veracity of it, whether or not it's accurate, but what we're hearing is that the larger banks are very difficult to get your applications through. And we're also hearing that they're preferring their much larger customers in the application approval process. Again, I don't know the reality of that situation, but it's what we're hearing. One of the feedback that I heard was, and I'm asking you guys as panelists, should I be applying at multiple banks?
So Wells Fargo actually told us to apply at multiple banks. We put our application in. They sent an email that said, have at it with other people because you might get your money first. That was a little disheartening in all fairness, when you hear your own bank that you bank with nonstop and have a lot of money in escrows to turn around and say you should probably apply elsewhere.
There's also a lot of misinformation about out there about applying to several banks, that you're going to trigger a fraud alert. Here's what I say to that. Until you've signed a promissory note with a bank, you haven't done anything. All you're doing is putting out paperwork. So I would suggest only signing one promissory note. I would go that route, but I wouldn't be concerned about a fraud alert at that point.
And Bryon, just this is exactly why policymakers addressed it this way, because we've been hearing this concern from members from day one. The banks have been prioritizing applications from existing business customers or requiring that business account. We have a very strong relationship with the American Banking Association and a number of other trade associations who we meet with on a regular basis to address these types of issues. So we've been working directly with their leadership, and they're trying to address it both with the regulators. The banking industry is one of the most highly regulated in the country. They have people in their office who are looking at the paperwork, and some of these are, the reason they're processing them faster is because if they have an existing business relationship, that's less paperwork and that's a faster way to get money out the door. So the concept of having more funding go to either independent community banks, smaller banks, CDFIs who may have those more direct relationships or may not have only the business relationships should help get money out the door faster. And if you take a look, we put out a breaking news alert yesterday, and I will note that our breaking news beat the Associated Press by about 22 minutes, but we put out specific guidance on those questions that we're getting on a near hourly basis. So if you've already applied for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the SBA is processing those applications already in the system on a first come, first served basis, so you do not need to reapply. If you have not already applied, get in and apply, because the SBA will be opening those applications shortly after this is signed back into law. For the PPP program, check with your lender to see if they are maintaining a queue of folks who have already put their applications in during the lapse, or if you need to reapply, because that is up to your lender. And if you have not applied yet for the PPP loan, I agree with everybody on this call. Do that first. Have the application form filled out, your documentation ready to go to provide to your lender. And we outline in this document to what forms you need. And if you have that existing relationship, go ahead and try it. Otherwise, you can go to the SBA website and find out who is taking those applications, but get that out the door. All of this information, I should have said this at the very beginning, is available at nar.realtor.com/coronavirus, or you can get on your phone and you can text COVID-19 to 30644, and I'll toss that in the chat feature as well. COVID-19 to 30644, and you'll immediately get a link to all of that information.
And Shannon, something you said prompted a question there in the chat. You said, and here again, we're talking about the EIDL, right? Not the PPP. You said that if you've already applied, you don't need to reapply. Somebody in the chat said that's only for loans after March 30th. Everything before then had been destroyed, is what the person in the chat said. Do you know that to be the case, or do we just not know that?
I don't know, but I will phone my friend Sarah Young and see if that's something that she has been familiar with. And
I can tell you from personal.
Hey, Sarah, if you have to take yourself off mute there, if you'd like to share.
We got our.
If I can take you.
We got our EID.
Okay, here I am. I'm sorry, I was reading the comments. Can you repeat the question?
Sorry, Sarah. The question was, Shannon was sharing about EIDL. That if you had already applied for that, you're queued. You don't need to reapply. Somebody in the chat said that they had heard that if you applied before March 30th and had not received it, that application was destroyed, and so you would have to reapply. Do you know that to be the case?
No, I would echo what Shannon said, that we were told that if you received a confirmation number from the SBA for an EIDL that you applied for, you are still in the queue, and they will process those loans on a first come, first served basis. So they will process them as those applications that come in. And I think they're seeing a couple week backlog, which might be why you haven't heard yet. One other question that I wanted to answer that has come up in the chat is, can you apply for an SBA loan and unemployment insurance? And we don't have a definitive answer for that. If you have applied for an SBA loan or been successful in getting an SBA loan, it is likely that your state will take that into consideration when they're processing your unemployment application. So it could be you're eligible for only a reduced benefit or not at all. But there's no hard and fast rule as to whether or not you can or can't apply for both. So I would go ahead and do whatever is best for your economic situation, and it can't hurt to at least talk to the professionals that are implementing the program in your state.
Yeah.
Well, so to kind of clear up the confusion here, I guess the right answer is, if you've applied, let's hope that application stands, but there's no harm in reapplying. So I would encourage you to do that as well if you're at all concerned that your application might have been before March 30th with what we're hearing in the chat. Ken, you were going to say something?
Yeah, as far as the EIDL, we actually got, I think, April 1st or 2nd, Mel, when we applied for the EIDL. And checked the box that said we will take the advance. We literally just got the advance yesterday and have heard nothing else since the EIDL. So we know they have our application, but I don't know what that means going forward. So, and the SBA's website won't address it. There's nothing in there. All it says is, as everyone has said, if we have your application, we'll continue to process it. I can only assume that since they put money into my account yesterday, that they have my application.
Mm-hmm.
Can we real quick discuss the EIDL though, so it's not confused with the PPP? Is that's a loan that's over 30 years with a 3.75, I think, % payback.
Yep.
And there is a up to $10,000 advance. It's $1,000 per employee. So if you're an independent, well, if you're an LLC, you are the employee, so you would be advanced $1,000 on that loan. So that's not to be confused with the PPP, which is a completely different loan that 75% is forgiven for payroll. Somebody asked a question in here that said, what if they have a closing? Does that involve PPP? PPP has nothing to do with whether or not you can close 15 more houses in the next 2 months. PPP is just strictly payroll. So it has nothing to do with whether or not you got paid like unemployment does.
Right.
So
And gang, we're seeing questions. I saw one earlier that, and again, there's a ton of misinformation and a ton of information, and it's hard to know which is which. One of the folks on the chat asked, "Do I need to be paying myself through a payroll system in order to qualify for that?"
No, not as an independent contractor. What they've said they're going to do is 75% of what they give you as an independent contractor will be what is forgiven. The other 25% is what you're going to have to prove that you used in regards to mortgage interest, utilities, stuff like that. And that's not yet, I haven't really seen anything definitive, because as a business, I have rent, I have utilities, I have phones connected to the business. But as an independent contractor who maybe works from my house, they haven't really indicated how much or if any of your mortgage interest on your personal house is going to be included in that extra 25% that they're going to forgive. So 75% is definitely forgiven. The other 25% is kind of still, I think, up in the air about what you can really use as an independent contractor to forgive it. Maybe Shannon might have more information.
Well, something else too I wanted to mention is I've seen a couple of questions about this. Two questions that I've seen come up quite a bit. What if your income is over 100,000 and for 2019? And just like Melanie had mentioned, the income is capped at 100,000. So to break it down, how you would figure what you would get for that 8 weeks is you would take your income for last year, which would be on your 1099 or your Schedule C, and you would take that and you would divide it by 12. And then multiply that by 2.5%. So the maximum that you could do is 100,000. So 100,000 divided by 12, and then multiply that by 2.5 is roughly about 20,000. So that would be the max that you would see for the 8 weeks. And then the second question was the business name on the PPP application. Yeah. I believe Melanie may have stated this earlier. That would be your name. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So, there's a lot of questions about the interactions between these, and Sarah kind of talked a little bit about, I think we all talked a little bit about it. Shannon, on an earlier call, we talked about the EIDL loans, and if I applied for that and get money through that, how does that interact with the PPP? Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So I should start with the disclaimer that I am your lobbyist here in Washington. I am not your financial advisor or lawyer. You should not trust me. None of these financial decisions, unless you're asking me about, what politicians to support, then we can talk. But not for any of this. And so we are told, make sure we tell you we can't help you with filling out your forms. What I can help you with is to describe what the legislative intent and the conversations that we're having with policymakers, how they design these programs. They designed these programs to aggressively get money out the door as quickly as possible. So there are a few of the programs that kind of are in conflict with each other. There are ones I mentioned some of the tax benefits earlier, that you're not allowed to apply for the employee retention tax credit in addition to the SBA loans, but the loans you're available for, the EIDL, I said that has that immediate $10,000 advancement that's supposed to be out within 3 days. Unemployment, as Sarah mentioned, that's another one that it was designed to be a last resort, because the fewer people who go on unemployment because they have access to PPP for their paycheck, that ends up offsetting, and that saves money from the government putting into unemployment programs, and that's how it was all designed. But as you can see from the price tags on these pieces of legislation and how they're moving with unanimous consent, talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. CARES was $2 trillion. That's the largest piece of legislation in our nation's history. They're not messing around. They're trying to get money out the door, and they're expecting you to go and aggressively get it and apply for as many things as possible. And they make it clear the tax programs versus others. One other tax program that is available is the ability to take money out of your retirement account without having to pay that tax penalty. That hasn't been getting a lot of attention as well, but you can get penalty-free withdrawals from your retirement account of up to $100,000. There is a repayment structure on the back end, but it does give you, I think, a matter of 3 years before you have to do that. And then there's the quickest and most obvious tax benefit of them all, which is none of us had to file last week. And more importantly, none of us had to pay last week. So having that cushion until July 15th is hopefully able to keep some money in everyone's checking account for the time being as well.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you have anything to add?
I did. I just had one thing to add about applying for both the PPP and the EIDL loans. There are a couple caveats. We're saying in our FAQs that if you apply for both loans, you must put them toward different expenses. And then if you do receive that advance grant from the EIDL as well as a PPP loan, then the amount of that advance will be subtracted from the amount that could be forgiven under your PPP loan. Does that make sense? So you would just be a little less would be forgiven, but it's going to be a wash because you will have gotten that $10,000 from the SBA for that other loan.
But you still have access to both of those programs.
Right, but you still can apply for both. And like Shannon said, I mean, they want you to get assistance. They really, want to keep the economy afloat. So that's why they're acting so quickly to fund these programs.
Well, and to that point, we talked earlier, I shared about my friend, Mr. Oberski up there in Michigan, and he, his agent saying that they may be beat out by those who have come before them in their application process, and yet you as panelists all said, apply anyways. We talked about this the other day, and Shannon and Sarah, I know NAR is advocating for additional rounds. I know it's probably still too early, but do you want to share anything about potential future rounds?
Sure. So our big push throughout this entire process, and this CARES 3.5 will be the fourth piece of legislation that has moved through, as I mentioned earlier, has been to ensure that our members are included in any of these responses. And so far, that has been the case. As we go through, so 3.5, we were out very early with a letter to congressional leaders and with communications on the Hill to ensure that the EIDL program was included as well. The first piece of legislation, which was a simple 2-pager showing that the Senate meant business and they want to get something over the finish line quickly, but then the negotiations continued from there. That only included the additional $250 for the PPP program, but none of the others. So this is an improvement with the extra, turns out to be $60 billion to EIDL, also with additional money to PPP and with the money that will be going to hospitals and to further medical testing. The conversations that congressional leaders in the White House are having about what the next round would be is less of a in the middle of it, how do we manage this pandemic, but more how do we recover from the pandemic and what changes need to be made there. We are looking at real estate as being a key part of that because this is something that, yes, people might have unfortunately lost a significant percentage of your 401k and your investments, but your housing values are holding steady and you're still seeing a good market demand. And Dr. Lawrence Yoon, our chief economist, has put out some really great research just earlier this week on that. So we're making sure that gets in front of policymakers. There are some policy challenges that we have. The big one is access to remote online notary. They're, ensuring that consumers still have access to buying a home and that the transaction can still take place. Right now, 23 states have it and are using it, but the remainder of the states don't have those minimum standards that you need on a federal level just to get that over the finish line. We were successful in getting two House members, a bipartisan a couple of members to introduce this bill a couple of weeks ago. We're collecting co-sponsors for it as we go into our May virtual legislative meetings. It's still coming up with some opposition because a number of states simply don't like the federal government telling them how to manage their access to online notary, but we are working it at a state level as well through our state associations and trying to have that included in any future pieces of legislation. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with CARES and then CARES the 2.0 or whatever we're calling it now, those were not policy-related bills. Those were simply used to get more authorization and appropriations out the door. So it was not a vehicle that could be used for that, but remote online notary is a big one for us.
Now, we talked about the tax benefits, we talked about PPP, we talked about EIDL. Let's talk for a second about unemployment as it relates to us as real estate agents. And I know that this is going to be a state-by-state issue. I've heard kind of horror stories about the application process and, you know, getting into the system and things of that nature. If I'm an agent, first off, if I have closings, am I eligible for unemployment?
Well, yes. Our strategy of veterans is to apply for both, see which one comes in first. And as people have already said, the unemployment is going to be offset by what you make in a commission dollar. So for the last 6 weeks you haven't worked, you're eligible for unemployment. Today you work, your commission, your unemployment is going to be offset by that. And I'm sure it's a math exercise state by state. Pennsylvania literally just opened up unemployment for independent contractors on Saturday, I think, Melanie. It's just, so the answer to the question is yes, you can do both, and how it affects you is going to be a state by state decision.
It's a very lengthy process.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Pennsylvania and Florida is actually worse than we are, but they opened up the application just so that people would stop complaining to the governor, I think. The applications are actually sitting in a queue to be reviewed 3 weeks from now. So no agent that applies is going to even remotely see any money coming from it for 3 weeks. So we're kind of telling agents, you need to do everything you can remotely to line up business so that you can kind of get back to work as quickly as you can, because unemployment is definitely the last resort that is out there for anybody, because it is just not an immediate fix. It's not an immediate fix for even if you had a job right now. So now that this is completely new and foreign to the States, it is definitely not an immediate fix for anybody.
I just posted in the chat, we have a specific FAQ that was broken out regarding the pandemic unemployment assistance because of the number of questions that we're receiving on that. And so this is another one that it's not the same as your state unemployment. It is in addition to, so even if your state does tell you, no, you can't apply, they should be giving you the opportunity to apply for this particular program. So we are just reassuring our members that yes, you do have access to it, but it is up to the states and how they coordinate with the Department of Labor to get it out the door. And a lot of states, I mean, we've been hearing a lot about Florida and Texas and others where they're having just a great deal of difficulty in getting the platform up and running, but they are all still working diligently on it. And we can certainly connect you with your state association as well if there's a particular state problem.
So we're licensed in both Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and the differences are like night and day. So New Jersey, you could apply for it, but you're applying through the regular system. You had to be denied. And then once you were denied, you could take that denial letter and apply. And in Pennsylvania, it's completely different. So it's really challenging. I would suggest for anybody that's going to apply to unemployment, you got to find your state rules and apply and try to stay within your lines, because anything that anybody's telling you outside of your state is probably not going to be helpful for you.
And I just wanted to note in the link that Shannon provided, because I see a lot of questions about how do I find out if my state is open, there's a lookup tool included in that FAQ. So you can click on the lookup tool and find your state, and it will take you to your state's website where you can find more information. But also one thing I just wanted to add about the states who are up and running, we are finding that some states are requiring a callback. So you'll get an unemployment assistance sort of case number, and it's requiring someone from the state to call you back. And unfortunately, this can make you vulnerable to scammers. So be very careful if you are participating in this program and you're requiring a callback, that the person who's calling you is legit and that you're not sharing with them any important information like your social security number. They should only be asking you for probably your application number to verify that you're talking to the right person. But just be very careful and let your clients know as well, just to be aware of the scams that we're seeing out there. the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is actually tracking scams going on right now. So feel free to go to consumerfinance.gov/coronavirus. And they have some good resources there for you as well.
Great. And I should re-echo something we've all said on this call so far, but none of us are attorneys. None of us have a CPA or tax accountant after our names. We are simply trying to pass along what we're learning as we go. Some of us learning it very much the hard way and want to help shortcut those for you. But do take the time to pick up the phone, call your tax attorney, call your lawyer, ask them whatever detailed questions you have about this. So, gang, any last piece of advice in terms of, which programs do I go apply for? When do I go apply for them? Do I apply for all or just one? Anything in parting before we kind of jump over to questions in the chat?
I think for me, apply to all of them. Make somebody tell you no would be the first piece of advice I give people. The second thing is get your information from credible sources. The biggest thing that we're finding now, all you have to do is Google anything you want, and you're going to find 15 different answers. I will tell you, not to blow sunshine at NAR, their website is outstanding as far as information and factual data and things that they're putting out that, and especially as it relates to what we do for a living. So that's a good one. SBA.gov as opposed to SBA.com. Please get the two straight. SBA.gov is the one you're trying to figure out to get good information. So just two right there that'll help you along.
Can we bring up real quick NAR's telehealth?
Say that one more time, Melanie.
Can we bring up NAR's new telehealth, the 2 months that NAR is going to pay? Because I think a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people that are independent contractors, we tend not to give ourselves health insurance. And if we do, it's not very good. And NAR is paying for 2 months of telehealth. And I don't know of anybody else here, but I do not want to go to the doctor and physically go into an office. So I think it was a great benefit that NAR put on that said, sign up here and we'll pay for 2 months for you. So Shannon, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Wasn't you?
nothing to do with the website or that one, but I will pass it along to our fantastic CEO, Bob Goldberg. And that is all available on our website too. I'm pulling up the link as well. And I will resend all these links at the end because I know on the chat feature, people are having trouble finding them. There's so many great questions. So realtorsinsurancemarketplace.com, and that has the information about the funding 2 months of telehealth, and you can sign up by May 31st. Also important to note that this is part of the Right Tools Right Now. So when these challenges were presented, our CEO and leadership team took the initiative to put these tools together, which means a number of free or significantly reduced and discounted products and services, including webinars, education courses, market reports, and a number of resources. So if you go to yes, it's nar.realtor/right tools right now. And I'll put all of this in the chat box as well.
Something too, I just wanted to bring this up because there seems to be a lot of confusion on is this a loan or is it free money? So I just want to back up for just a minute. So it's called the Paycheck Protection Program loan because initially it is a loan. However, it may be forgiven, and that's where you have to go back to the bank and show, how the money was spent for it to be forgiven. I want to clarify that one does have a 1% interest rate, and it's over 2 years, and the loan is deferred for 6 months. The other question was another one that kept coming up over and over again.
I think one of them was, how do you determine your payroll if you're an independent contractor?
Yes, that's it. Yes, I'll let you take that one, Mel.
So you, as an independent contractor, you are your own business owner and you kind of pay yourself. You just don't realize you're paying it. So you're going to take your Schedule C, divide that by 12, and that's going to be the number that you enter into your monthly payroll. So when when PayPal or any of those ask you, what is your monthly payroll? It is going to be that number, Schedule C net, divided by 12, that's going to be what you put in there, and they figure out the loan based on that. So hope that helps.
And again, if you're in doubt about what that number might be, talk with your tax accountant. Is there a good resource site for everybody to be able to determine how much of this, how am I going to get this forgiven? How much of this is going to be something that I have to pay interest and pay back versus what I'm going to be able to have forgiven?
So as far as the site goes, I haven't found one. It is a math exercise. We've been kind of running the numbers for 2 weeks now as far as how much we get, how much has to go to salary, how much we have to, what we have left. So the numbers are 75 and 25%. 75% of whatever they give you must go to salary. Everything after that is going to either be forgiven or not forgiven based on what you use it on. As Melanie said earlier, we don't know if independent contractors, if their interest on their home loan is going to be deductible. We know as a broker that rent and mortgages that you would have on properties will be. So it's a bit of a gray area. And until somebody answers that question, I'd probably err to the side of caution. Instead of taking 75% in salary, I'd probably make sure I had 80 or 85% salary, just to try to get it all or as much forgiven as I could. And again, your worst case scenario on the back side of that is you're going to have a couple of $1,000 loan at 1% interest for 2 years. I'll take those all day long.
Yeah, there's no origination fee to that. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I'll take those all day long.
Yeah.
The Treasury actually puts out, treasury.gov puts out the latest information into a PDF. So if you go to treasury.gov, you can actually find what is forgiven, what is included. Because somebody asked about the independent contractors. It did change from the time they said you could do it as an independent contractor to today. You used to be able to do it on the whatever your 1099 was up to 100,000. Now you have to do it on your net of your Schedule C. They just completely changed that rule recently, and unfortunately that's what you got. But it is on treasury.gov, and that's probably the best resource of up to date. What is today's rule as opposed to what was 2 days ago's rule? It's kind of crazy.
And Bryon, honestly, we're finding that we have all these same resources, and we take those resources and we update our FAQs on nar.realtor. But it's these webinars that I think are the best. When you have real life professionals talking about how they went through the process of trying to apply for a loan, I think that is so invaluable to your agents, your brokers, because it's so nuanced. We can put out FAQs all day long, but when you really sit down with your own business and your own numbers, it's just, there's so many different variables that you just don't anticipate. So getting these stories has just been so great. And that's something we're working at NAR as well, is thinking about maybe doing a couple of video series of our own where we're interviewing people who've successfully completed one of these loans, just to give hope to people too, that this isn't a black hole. You too can be successful. It's just going to take a little bit of time and perseverance, and I think you can be successful. So thank you all for sharing your experience. I think it's really invaluable.
Well, if I could, if I could,
please.
One of the things that we're doing is just networking. Calling around various chat groups, different places that we know that information is good, and just asking questions. What did you do? How did you do? That kind of thing. And we had no idea that PayPal was even a resource for this. And then you come to find out that a bunch of people are using it. And you get into that queue. BoFi another one that C21 put out last week that was just invaluable. So it's the networking aspect of this thing can't be overemphasized.
Yeah. And again, none of us are tax experts. None of us are legal experts. We're just trying to share the information we're hearing as we're hearing it so that we can help you. And the thing that I think is most important is, first, go find the information. But second, go apply. Just make the step, get over whatever mental hurdle, and go apply. One of the things that I heard, speaking of applying, is that the SBA, the PPP, had stopped accepting applications. Has that begun again, or are we just kind of in a holding pattern until the bill gets approved?
Yeah, you're still waiting. It's got to be authorized by the signatures. And the way this thing's going, I assume that that's going to be, I mean, we talked about it earlier on the pre-call. You knew it was going to happen. Here we are, and everybody's at the starting gate at this point. So I think probably Thursday the president will sign it, or Friday, and by that point it'll be on.
I think some sites though are doing it. Like some sites are taking applications.
Yeah,
PayPal is
absolutely.
taking them.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Wells
seeing.
Fargo
Melanie.
is not.
Yeah.
BoFi is taking them. So it just kind of depends. I think you kind of have to look at your own bank and say, are you taking the application now?
Correct.
Okay. So I think if I were going to sum up what I heard, first is go talk to your tax accountant, your informational advisors, and make sure that you're getting the answers to whatever questions you still have. Second is get on to whatever local, regional banks that you bank at or can bank at, and make sure you're applying there. Make sure, like Chicago voting rules, as they say, vote early, vote often, apply early, apply often here. Sorry, that's for Shannon and Sarah.
Sad but true.
So do make sure that you're getting your place in line as quickly as possible on this. And make sure, too, that you're taking advantage of the resources. I joked the other day as Shannon and Sarah were on the call that we all owe our NAR representatives one great big hug, whether it's pushing for legislation like this for us to be included, whether it's pushing the local state governors to make sure that where we could to get us included as essential services, all the different things that NAR is doing for us, they are really shining through as great leaders in this time. And so we want to thank you and Shannon and your fellow coworkers there at NAR. We really appreciate the help. And for all of you for being panelists here today, thank you very much. I think for all of us at C21 headquarters, we want to say the first and foremost thing is that we hope that you and your families are safe and healthy. We hope that your clients are safe and healthy. We want to encourage you to plug in. We've got some great programs coming out of Century 21 University. Starting in May, we're going to be doing the 100-day business plan. We're calling it Reimagining Your Business, 100-day plan to rule the recovery. And it's about helping you reshape whatever business plan you may have had for 2020, getting into a 100-day activity plan so that you can re-energize your business and come out of this capturing your unfair share of market share. And we encourage you to go online to Century 21 University, look for Rule the Recovery, and also plug into all the different training classes that we have available to you virtually. They're free. So why wouldn't you do that to make sure you're energizing? And get on our Friday coaching call with Greg Harrelson and myself every Friday at noon called Mind Over Market. We're here to help. So panelists, thank you again. Could I ask you guys to hang out for just a few more minutes and maybe answer these questions as we go?
Bryon, I'm locked in my house. I'm so excited to talk to other people.
Right? Me too.
Fire away,
All right, awesome. All right, so we're going to try to tackle your questions. I've been seeing a bunch that have been going so quickly by. So what have you got for us? Where is the first one there was, where is the EIDL website?
SBA.gov.
SBA.gov. Okay, good.
It is not currently up. You'll see it as waiting for reauthorization. Well, yeah, man, we run overtime. Put another quarter in, brother.
I just saw a question that came in. What if you do not have a Schedule C, as you are an S Corp that pays you and yourself a salary? What is the question? Are you still able to apply? Is that the question?
You apply as your S Corp, so you wouldn't need a Schedule C. You would apply with your K1. If you don't have any employees, but you have a K1, your K1 becomes your 1099 for all intents and purposes.
All right. And I see a bunch of thank yous and thank you again. one of the questions we kept getting over and over and over again was, do I need to have completed my 2019 taxes?
No, you just need the form. That's the weird part.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
No, the answer is no. I saw that question.
Yeah, because a lot of us find ourselves in the same situation just while we're here.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have trouble getting the advanced $1,200 per payment if you, had to pay taxes last year and haven't filed your 2019 yet. They don't have your information. So stop looking in your checking account. It's not going to get there. You have to do something. We don't know what that something is yet because the site won't allow you to put your information in yet. So you may be waiting for a check in the mail, but that has nothing to do with us. But that's how that works.
Money.
A follow-up question on that was, what if I'm a new agent and I don't have a Schedule C?
They would have, if they worked this year, they would have a 1099. So they just fill in their Schedule C as with their 1099 that they had previous to that. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to qualify.
Okay.
Yeah, you would definitely need
At that
to have
point,
been before.
you know,
I think it was before February 15th. You would have needed
yeah.
to.
And if you had no income, your best bet at that point is unemployment.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get the minimum.
Talk to a tax professional and find out if they can give you a better answer than we did. You know, it's just, you know, if you're just starting out, you may not have all the documentation that we all have, but if you talk to a tax guy, you might be able to help you out.
Yeah.
There seemed like there are a lot of questions on PayPal. Like, how do you use PayPal? Do you need to be a member? Do you all have any feedback on that?
So you do not have to be a member of PayPal. I put the link in a couple times. It's actually Loan Builder partnered up with PayPal. So when you go on, you're not going onto the PayPal website. You're looking up Loan Builder and PPP, and you will be directed to the Loan Builder's site strictly for applying for PPP. It has nothing to do, honestly, with PayPal. It's just who they partnered with to get all of these applications done as quickly as they could.
Because PayPal is very good at this kind of thing as far as moving money from point A to point B. The whole goal here, that Shannon said earlier, was to try to get the money out as quickly as possible. And the banks, in all fairness to the banks, they are who they are. They couldn't help themselves. So when you take it away from them and give it to somebody who's actually better at this than they are, and doesn't have as many, I guess, regulatory restrictions as they do, to administer a program that said, throw this money out here as quickly as you can, they seem to be better at it.
Right. The entire online lending community exists to facilitate these types of interactions and not have to do it face to face or to have a previous relationship with them. So, so they have cropped up in that area, that area that has not had that level of regulation, whereas banks are always going to prioritize kind of that face to face and established contact. Bigger
client.
Can you talk about the time? I know there's some questions about time frames. How long are these loans eligible for? You know, in terms of loan forgiveness, did they give you some parameters? So
8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Yeah, so EIDL is not a new program. It's a typical, anytime there's a disaster happening anywhere in the country, EIDL exists. So that's a completely different conversation, but still available. $2 million, you can get it to 30-year payback. That's EIDL. PPP, right now until the money runs out and your payback, and 8 weeks, I mean, is how long you have to disperse it. It's a 2-year loan time frame.
Yeah, and you do have until June the 30th to apply, but really you need to do it. Like, I've seen some people that have applied while they've been on this. I'm like, wait, kudos. Yes. I'm like, yes, that's awesome.
Royalty.
That's somebody that's taking advantage of the training and putting it to good
use. Exactly. Yeah, because I mean, these funds, I mean, they say that, oh, good, Saria's doing it now. That's awesome. Yes, you need to do it like ASAP.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a bunch of people in the chat. I said, I guess during the call they went and applied and got it done.
Yeah,
while they were on
Scott did
the call.
too. Great job, Scott.
It surely is that easy. All right.
Yeah, the whole idea is to get into the queue and get those guys moving on your application. There's a lot of questions, again, about last year's tax return, this year's tax return. All that information, folks, is readily available to you at sba.gov, you know, or Mel, what's the other site? I mean, we're using a couple of different sites. NAR site is real informative. So, you know, when you have specific questions like that, you don't necessarily have to go outside your account or anything like that.
But 2018 won't work.
2018 won't work. You either have to have your taxes done,
Or you have to guess.
Yeah.
Talk with your tax accountant about that guess.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're right at the top of the hour, so I think we're gonna leave it there. This has been recorded. It will be posted on Facebook Workplace, so that'll be available to you guys. The Century 21 Facebook Workplace site you can get to through 21online.com. When you log in there, there's a little link at the top to go to Workplace, and then you can search for the title of today's session, Paycheck Protection Program and CARES Act for Agents, and you'll be able to find the link to this recording. So once again, panelists, thank you all so very much. And Sarah, thank you for jumping on last minute for color commentary. We really appreciate it as well. All right, you guys,
Bryon.
until next time, thanks so much.
Thank you all. Oh, you're welcome, Debbie. Nice seeing you here. Hey, Lisa, good seeing you here. Hey, Jim, good seeing you. Julie? As Bryon mentioned, it will be posted on Workplace. Hey, Jerry. Looks like everybody else has already jumped off, but I'm just hanging out to see a few more.
There were a couple of questions in there that, you know, EIDL is, you're right. If you go to the link now, it's not authorized. And once the president signs, it will absolutely, the money will be there. You can reapply, but it's not going to happen today. They don't have any money.